If you are newish to shooting with your Sony a6000, a6100, a6400, a6700, ZV-E10, ZV-E10 Mark II, FX30, I'm sure I'm missing some of them, you've probably wondered or asked yourself, what is the best lens? And this is a tough question. It's like asking, what is the best car? A Porsche 911. Okay, maybe that's a bad example, but it depends on what you are doing. Are you racing? Are you road tripping with 8 adults? Are you off-roading? Are you drifting? Are you transporting gold bars like in the Italian Job? Lenses are the same way. They each have a purpose, so in this video, I'm going to help you find the best lens based on what you actually shoot. Links for everything will be down below. I will include the best deals that I find, but lens prices fluctuate more than last-minute airline ticket prices, so check what they're selling for today. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which lens to buy for your particular shooting style, whatever it is that you like to shoot. So let's get started. Vlogging landscape architecture. I know what you're thinking, does anyone even vlog anymore? I don't know the answer to that, but Sony seems to think so because they keep releasing new vlogger-focused cameras every single year, so maybe that says something. Vlogging is simply recording yourself selfie style. Now, to pull this off on an APS-C camera, you need a very wide lens. By far, my favorite vlog lens is the Sony 11mm f1.8. No surprise there. The Sony 11mm is, in my opinion, the best lens that they've released for APS-C in the last 10 years. It's small, it's light, it's incredibly bright at f1.8. It's also ridiculously sharp corner to corner. Now, if you're thinking, okay, I don't vlog next, I would not discount this lens that quickly. If you shoot interior real estate, this is the best lens for the job. If you shoot wide-angle astrophotography, the best lens for the job. If you want to capture dramatic landscapes where everything around you is in the frame, this is the best lens for the job. It's very wide, but surprisingly versatile. The fact that it's an 11mm is also a positive if you own a camera such as the a6700 or the ZV-E10 Mark II or the FX30, which all three of those have active stabilization. Now, what active stabilization does is zooms in electronically and stabilizes your video footage while you are recording video. And this cropping is good because it makes this 11mm lens feel more like a standard 24mm full frame equivalent when it's all said and done. So for people and faces, it's not going to look too distorted with active stabilization, even if you're in the corner of the frame. And f1.8 aperture means you're going to be able to shoot at night in the dark with fewer problems than a lens with a smaller aperture such as f2.8 or f4. I'm going to give 1 to 2 honorable mentions in each of these categories. If you want something with more versatility, if you think that sometimes you want to take that super wide shot and also zoom in at times to get something more standard, I'd highly recommend looking at the Sigma 10 to 18mm zoom. I don't have it here with me, but I am currently shopping for one. And the purpose of that lens is going to be, it's going to live on my ZV-E10 Mark II for my wife to travel and vlog and record our family trips with. That will give her a constant, versatile, compact setup that works in almost any scenario. Being able to zoom into anything and show more detail is a very nice feature to have. You do give up a little bit of low light performance because the Sigma zoom is f2.8, but I think that the versatility is well worth it. I'm waiting for it to go on sale, and that's going to be an insta purchase for me. Now, if you don't have a huge stack of $100 bills in your wallet, the second honorable mention is the new budget entry, the Viltrox 9mm f2.8. I reviewed this lens recently and I was genuinely expecting it to be much worse than it is. It's shockingly good for the money, especially if you can find it on sale. I don't really know how they did it. It's small, it's light, it's even wider than the Sony 11mm at 9mm. It's not as bright at f2.8, but f2.8 is still plenty good for 95% of scenarios. Very sharp across the frame. For the money, this little lens cannot be beaten if you want an ultra wide angle lens to record yourself or real estate or astrophotography or vast scenery. YouTube talking head. Let's say you have a little room or office or part of a kitchen or living room that you want to start a YouTube channel in. You want to record yourself just like this. You're just talking to the camera. You could use a wide variety of lenses. You could set up your tripod far away and shoot with a longer lens. But in general, if you want your camera to be within arm's length and you want to look like you are just having a conversation with your audience, you want something between 14mm and 16mm for that purpose. You don't want it to be too wide because then When you move your hands out here, they'll look like octopus tentacles. You just want a natural look. Now, this type of lens can also be used for general walk around prime use. If you use your normal camera on your iPhone, it gives you about this equivalent focal length, so it feels very familiar. I've tried a lot of lenses for this shot, and the one that I've landed on might surprise you. It's the Sony 15mm f1.4. I know when that lens came out, my review was basically this lens is kind of worthless. It's a more expensive version of the Sigma 16mm that doesn't offer anything significant, blah, 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 blah. The lens really has grown on me, and this video is about the best, and the 15mm f1.4 is the better lens compared to the Sigma 16. First, it's very sharp. Second, it's extremely bright at f1.4, which means it works great in darker conditions, and it also gives you nice and blurry backgrounds even as a wide angle lens. Third, it has a dedicated aperture ring, which is a convenient thing for YouTube videos. It's better than fumbling around through the camera's menu. And fourth, it supports focus breathing compensation on the newest Sony camera bodies. So if your camera has focus breathing compensation, enabling it means that when I move my head towards and back, you'll see that the background stays the way that it is without shifting or moving in and out. So that's the nice thing about having a Sony lens on a Sony camera body that supports focus breathing compensation. That's one of the only negatives about the Sigma 16mm. For video, the focus breathing is noticeable, and you can't use focus breathing compensation because it's not a Sony lens. The only other slight annoyance that I have with it is that you do get some crooked lines at times because of the distortion, but I'm not going to get into that. The Sony 15mm is far too expensive for what it is. I didn't want to pay $600 for it when I bought it, and I think that the price now is near $900, which for an APS-C prime lens is pretty ridiculous, but it is the best lens for the purpose. I use it. I know a handful of other YouTubers who use it as well for this type of shot. In terms of honorable mentions, I'm going to say that the second best option is not the Sigma, shockingly. The second best option is even cheaper. It is the Viltrox 15mm f1.7. Now this Viltrox is also nice and sharp. It's f1.7, so not quite as much background blur as the f1.4 of the Sigma or the Sony, but it costs around $200, much less on sale versus the $900 of the Sony that I'm using right now. It also has less focus breathing than the Sigma, and it's slightly better at line distortions, so barrel and pin cushion control. So if you have a flat table, let's say like I have right now in front of you, it will look more flat than kind of curvy on the edges in your video. Now, second runner-up is the Sigma. I know, I'm shocked by it too. It's still an incredible lens, but the Viltrox just beats it in a few key areas, and for about half the price, you really can't ignore that new release right there. The Sigma 16 is probably the most popular APS-C lens of all time. It is a staple and a favorite among many, and it's still one that I recommend. So if you own one, know that you still have an exceptional lens in your kit with the Sigma 16. Street photography. Now let's say you want to take your camera out and you want to take pictures of life in the city or in the country or buildings, strangers walking around. If you want to convey some sort of story through the emotion of a photograph, there is a lens for that, and that is typically the standard 35mm field of view. They say it's the closest thing to what the human eye sees, but I have some strong peripherals, so I don't know. Anyway, the lens for this type of work on Sony APS-C is the Viltrox 27mm f1.2. The reason that I like this Viltrox 27 is not because it is f1.2. I don't think f1.2 is necessary unless you are trying to get some sort of night vision style shots, but this lens is just simply exceptionally executed. It's astonishingly sharp, it has brilliant colors, it offers smooth backgrounds, a ton of subject separation. There's something about the images coming out of this lens that make them feel special. It's a big lens, it's heavy, it's expensive, but if I were to answer the question of what is the best street lens, this is it, easily. Now I will say 27mm is more like a 40mm full frame equivalent, so if you want a true 35mm, the honorable mention here goes to the Sigma 23mm f1.4. This is super sharp, it's great in low light, it's compact, it's a bit pricey, but the best 23mm for APS-C without question. I do prefer the rendering of the Viltrox, but the Sigma is very, very good if you want a slightly wider field of view. Again, I'll link everything down below, including where you can get these for a little bit less money buying either used or refurbished, because honestly, that's how I buy half of my lenses anyway. General everyday travel lens. Let's say you are looking for one lens to do everything. Think of this as the Swiss Army knife of lenses. Good enough for wide angle, good enough for portraits, good enough for street work, for weddings, events, documentary style, run and gun, studio work. Well, there are a handful of options, but without question, the ultimate one and done APS-C lens is the new Sigma 17 to 40mm f1.8 zoom. This lens is a zoom, which means you can rotate it and it will get you closer to your subject. It offers you the flexibility at times when you can't walk physically closer to a subject. Not only is it a zoom, it is a zoom with a constant f1.8 aperture, meaning this lens lets in as much, if not more light than most prime or non-zooming lenses out there. It used to be that people would buy prime lenses because they were sharper, better, with fewer optical flaws. Zooms were more convenient. It's like having a bunch of lenses built into one, but optically the zooms of the past were always not as sharp, not as good in low light situation, a compromised option. That's really not the case with the Sigma 17 to 40. This zoom is mind-blowingly sharp. It's sharper than probably every other lens that I've mentioned in this video at this point, and to say that about a zoom lens is a shocking statement. It feels premium, it's made in Japan just like every other Sigma lens, but this is part of the Art lineup, which is the top of the line of what Sigma offers. It's a bit bigger than the other f2.8 zoom lenses out there, it's pricey, but I've compared the Sigma to nearly every other lens that I own at this point, and it's better than all of them in sharpness. It's really a beautiful release. The bokeh isn't perfectly circular. Sometimes there's some Loca color fringing, which is annoying, but for a zoom lens, this has the smallest number of compromises that I've ever seen. I think it's worth every single penny. Now, in terms of runners up, there are three primary contenders: the Sony 16 to 55G, the Sigma 18 to 50, and the Tamron 17 to 70, which I don't have with me. All three are f2.8 zoom lenses, so they don't let in as much light as the Sigma 17 to 40, but all three are still excellent performing lens options. The Sony is the most optically perfect of the three, but it's ridiculously expensive and it's not as sharp as the Sigma 17 to 40. The Tamron is the only one with stabilization built into the lens, which is a very nice thing to have on a general walk around lens, but my favorite of the three is still the Sigma 18 to 50. If you don't have the money for the Sigma 17 to 40, get the 18 to 50. It is super small, it's well priced, it's excellent across the frame, it has a ridiculously good minimum focus distance, so for close-up work, if I'm taking quasi-macro shots of lenses, I use this lens more than just about any of my other lenses. It's one of those lenses that you can pick up for around $500 to $600, probably use it for about 5 years and sell it again for nearly no loss. It's a superb value. Portraits. Now let's talk about the best APS-C portrait lenses. The Viltrox 75mm f1.2 is the answer to this one. It's another one in that Pro lineup, so along with the 27mm f1.2 that I already discussed, but this is an absolute beast of a portrait lens. If you do the math, you're getting a 112mm equivalent field of view, which means you get so much subject separation, the blurriest backgrounds, and a very flattering look for your subject. This lens is big, heavy, pricey, but it's an all-metal build just like the 27mm premium materials, and optically no other lens gives you the performance for the sole task of photographing people. This is my pick day in and day out every day of the week. Now, as for a smaller but still very strong alternative, the Sigma 56mm f1.4 is right up there. This little lens is the sharpest lens in the Sigma APS-C contemporary lineup. It's been out for a long time, since 2018. And year after year, other lenses try to come after it and they never quite succeed. The 56 means you are getting a more traditional 85mm equivalent full frame field of view. So if you like the slightly wider portrait look, this is a great option. And with the size and the weight, it's a lens that truly shocks people once you show them the result. This is a very unassuming, very small compact lens. You put it on a small body, it doesn't look like much, but the results are pretty amazing. Wildlife. If you need to get really close to something, but you can't walk there because let's say it's a lion and it will eat you if you get too close, what you need is a telephoto lens. Unfortunately for APS-C shooters, we are still waiting on a dedicated fast aperture telephoto. Maybe hopefully that comes someday soon. Sony still refuses to give us a fast APS-C telephoto, but sure, let's make another vlogging camera, why don't we? Anyway, you have two options here. Number one, you can go the route of an APS-C telephoto that has a variable aperture, meaning that as you zoom in, the lens lets in less and less light. Or two, you can buy a full frame lens and use it on your APS-C camera. And if I am answering the question of what is the best lens for wildlife, well then I'm going to say it's the $13,000 Sony FE 400mm f2.8 GM. But let's get a little bit more realistic. What you probably want is a 70 to 200mm, which will give you roughly a 105 to 300mm equivalent on your APS-C camera in terms of equivalent field of view. Now the best 70 to 200mm is the Sony GM2. I don't own it. It's big, it's expensive, it offers you superb image quality, autofocus build, all of it for over $3,000. But personally, I would pick up the Sigma 70 to 200 f2.8 DG-DNOS. It's a lens that optically gives you the same level of sharpness, with the trade-off being that you can't shoot 120 frames per second. But guess what? No Sony APS-C camera can shoot more than 11 frames per second. So why would you pay double for the same lens just to give you more performance that you'll never be able to utilize? And this 70 to 200mm, because it is a full frame lens, it is bigger, heavier, bulkier to carry around. But if you are shooting telephoto, you are probably used to all of that. Now, runner-up that I have to talk about is the Sony 70 to 350mm, which is an APS-C lens. It's a great compact option. Optically, it's very good. The only negative, and really the big negative, is the variable aperture. This means that this lens is not going to work very well in dark lighting situations. It'll be great for sunlight, but at night, it just won't be. And also, it won't give you that subject separation and blurry backgrounds nearly to the extent that an f2.8 zoom lens would give you. Sony or Sigma really need to make a fast telephoto for APS-C. I'm honestly shocked that it's taken this long for someone to make one. Macro. What if you want to get really close to your subject, uncomfortably close? If you want to shoot bugs or textures or mini Lego figurines, you need a macro lens. What is the best macro lens currently available for APS-C? Well, I think it might be the new Sony 100mm macro, which I haven't used yet. The Sony 90mm macro has been one of my favorite macro lenses for a long time, and it was recently upgraded to the new 100mm. Both of these options are full frame lenses, but I personally think that they are far too expensive unless you are making money shooting macro photography. It's hard to justify the prices of these lenses. That's why if I were forced to buy one, I would pick up the Sigma 70mm f2.8 macro. It's sharp, small, performs well, and it's $600 US, which is a much smaller pill to swallow than $1,500 for the new 100mm. If you are on a very tight budget, I would check out the Sony 30mm f3.5, which is an APS-C macro lens, one of the few APS-C macro lenses out there. It's probably 12 years old, if not older at this point, but what I've learned over the years is that it's really hard to mess up a macro lens. Most of them are super sharp. Now, if you are on a super duper tight budget and you want to spend, let's say, 10% of the price of that cheap Sony macro lens, you can buy some extension tubes. These are super cheap plastic rings that turn any lens into a macro lens. Now, optically, it might not be as sharp as a dedicated macro lens, but if you only occasionally want to shoot super close images, this is a smart route to take. You can also buy a diopter, which is like a magnifying glass that you screw onto the front of your lens to get the same effect, but I prefer the extension rings because they are cheaper, they're smaller, and they work on every single lens, whereas depending on what lens you want to use a diopter on, you might need to buy several different ones, different sizes to fit the front threads of your lenses. So that is my list, but let me know down in the comment section below where I am wrong. What is your favorite lens? And perhaps more importantly, what do you shoot most? Because I might do a deep dive into that category in an upcoming video. Again, check out the links for all of these as I discuss them. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.